Hi guys, welcome back to ladensercrotchets. In this tutorial, we're going to be making this granny square patchwork tank top. I've not weaved in the ends yet, but then this is the idea. I hope you're going to enjoy making this. If you're new to the channel, kindly subscribe and join the family. Grab your materials and let's get into the tutorial. I'll be using a medium weight yarn, which is 100% acrylic. It's called Winter King, and this is a Kenyan brand. And I'm using these two shades of green. Then I'll need a 3.5mm crochet hook, a darning needle, 2 stitch markers, a pair of scissors, and a measuring tape. I'll start with a granny square like this one in this shade. So what you need to do is we begin with a magic ring, and to create the magic ring, we start with a slip knot, then chain 4, after the 4 chains, insert the hook in the first chain and do a slip stitch right there, and we're going to create this gap, which is our magic ring. That's why we're going to insert our stitches. Then we begin row 1 by chaining 2, and that's our first double crochet. Then yarn over, insert your hook into that ring, yarn over, pull up a loop so that you get 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through the remaining 2. Then we're going to place another double crochet so that we get 3 double crochets into that ring. Next, we're going to chain 2, go back into that ring with 3 double crochets, again chain 2, back into the ring with another 3 double crochets, chain 2 again, and go back into the same ring with another 3 double crochets. So in total you should have 4 clusters of 3 double crochets. So that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. We complete row 1 by chaining 2, and then we do a slip stitch on top of the chain 2 right here. Do a slip stitch, and that completes row 1. Chain 2 and turn to begin row 2. That's our first double crochet. So into this chain 2 gap, we're going to place 2 double crochets. So together with the chain, we're going to get 3 double crochets. Then chain 2, go back into the same gap with 3 double crochets. And we call that a 3 double crochet shell stitch. Then we're going to place a 3 double crochet shell stitch into each of these remaining 3 gaps. But then before we get into this gap, we're going to chain 1, then get into the gap and place a shell, 3 double crochet shell stitch. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, back into that gap with another 3 double crochets, 1, 2 and 3. Then chain 1 and skip to the next gap, place a shell, chain 1 and place the last shell into the last gap. To complete row 2, chain 1 and do a slip stitch on top of the beginning chain 2 stitch right here. Then chain 2, turn to begin row 3. Now in that immediate gap, we're going to place only 2 double crochets. Then chain 1 to get to the first corner. So this is the first corner, the second, the third, and the fourth. And you're only going to place the shell into the corners. These gaps that are not in the corner will only get 3 double crochets. So after chaining 1, we get into this corner and place a shell. That is 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 more double crochets. Chain 1, then we move on to the next gap. After placing that shell into the next gap, place only 3 double crochets, chain 1, skip onto the corner and place a shell, chain 1, place 3 double crochets into this gap, chain 1, another 3 double crochets into this, into the corner we're going to place a shell, that is, so place 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 more double crochets, chain 1, skip onto the next gap and place 3 double crochets, only 3 double crochets because that's not a corner, chain 1 into the last gap which is a corner, place a shell there, chain 1 and slip stitch onto the chain 2 to complete row 3, chain 1 and cut off the yarn. Then pull through and fasten, and we are done with our first square. I'm working my top in size small to medium, and I did a total of 16 squares. If you're doing a bigger top, then you're going to need more squares. So these are my 16 squares, and they are what I'm going to join to get the top. So I'm going to grab the next color, then begin with a slip stitch, slip knot. I'll begin with a slip knot, then get one of the squares. Into one of the corners we're going to connect the green yarn, any of the corners, it could be anywhere. So connect right here, then chain 2, go back into that corner with a shell, so place 2 more double crochets to make 3, then chain 2 and go back right there and place 3 more double crochets, next we're going to chain 1, skip over to this gap and place 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets into the next gap, chain 1, we get into the corner and place a shell there, chain 2, go back into the gap and place 3 more double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets into this gap, chain 1, into the next gap, 3 double crochets, chain 1, and that gets us to the corner. We place a shell there, so 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 more double crochets. Chain 1 into this gap, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets into the next gap, chain 1, shell stitch into the chain 2 gap, chain 1 into the gap, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets into this gap, chain 1, complete the row with a slip stitch onto the chain 2 gap. On top of it, chain 1 and cut off the yarn, pull through and fasten. For the next square, we're going to get the next square. Start with a slip knot, connect the yarn onto one of the corners, chain 2, place 2 more double crochets right there, so that together with the chain we get 3 double crochets, chain 1, get the first square on one of the corners right here, put your hook through like this and do a slip stitch right there, then go back into this chain with 3 double crochets into that corner, and that completes the shell on that corner of the second square. So they are joined at the corner part. We're going to move to the next gap right here. So insert your hook into that gap just like this, grab a loop to slip stitch, then we move over to this next gap and place 3 double crochets into that gap, then onto the first square in the next gap, insert your hook just like this, grab your yarn and do a slip stitch, then you're going to get to the next gap, and into that next gap place 3 double crochets. Make sure that your yarn is not loose. We get into the next gap of the first square, insert the hook and do a slip stitch, and that will get us to the last gap of the second square. Place 3 double crochets into it, chain 1, go into the last gap of the first square, insert your hook, slip stitch, get back to this and place the second 3 double crochets to make the shell at the corner. And right there we are at the end of the joining, so then we continue all the way around to this part, same way we did on this other side. So now chain 1 into the next gap, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets next, chain 1, shell into the corner for 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into the same corner, chain 1, we place 3 double crochets into this gap, into the next gap, a shell into the corner, 3 double crochets here and 3 double crochets here. Then I'll meet you at the end. At the end, after chaining 1, slip stitch on top of the chain 2, chain 1 and cut off the yarn, pull through, fasten, and our first 2 squares are joined. You can just pull this part to ensure that it is in shape. Then we're going to get a third square and connect it the same way we've connected the second. Then as we connect the squares, we're going to measure and ensure that we are approaching the bust measurement. So to measure, place your measuring tape on one corner, then onto the other corner, just pull. And my 2 squares are getting me to 11 inches, and I want to work a bust measurement of 35. So I'm going to connect the squares until I get to a bust measurement of 35. At this point, I've joined a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 squares. So we're going to measure these, see what we've gotten to. So from here, I'll just stretch. So as you can see, I'm at 38 and I wanted to get to 35. Like I said, I'm working a small to medium, so it could be between 35 to 38. Now at this point, I've gotten to my bust measurements, but then I wasn't supposed to complete the last square. I was supposed to use it to join onto the onto the first. So I'll just undo this at this point. So when you get to your last square, do not complete, just join. So after joining at this point, you're going to work up to the next corner right there. Now at this second corner, so after joining here, we work up to this point. At this corner, after working the 3 double crochets, we chain 1 and then grab the first square. We're folding our work like this, grab the first square, and on this corner that corresponds to the other corner on the other square, we slip stitch. So insert the hook and do a slip stitch right there. Then go back into this corner and place 3 double crochets. Then into the next gap of the first square, slip stitch right there. Then get back onto this gap and place 3 double crochets. Going to the next gap, do a slip stitch. Get back and do 3 double crochets. Then into the next gap of the other square, slip stitch. We get into the last gap and do 3 double crochets. That is the corner gap, 1, 2, and 3. Then chain 1 and slip stitch onto the last gap of the first square. Then get back into this and place 3 double crochets. And the first and the last squares are joined, so we have a round. Then we continue to the end. So now chain 1, 3 double crochets into the next gap. Chain 1, 3 double crochets into the gap that follows. Then chain 1 and slip stitch at the beginning. At this point, you're going to chain 1, cut your yarn, and then pull through. And this represents your bust measurement, that this should be able to fit onto your bust. We're going to work another row of the 7. There are 7. So we're going to work another 7 squares as we connect them onto the first row right here. To get the yarn, start with a slip knot. Then get a square and connect the yarn at the corner. Chain 2, then 2 double crochets into that corner. Then chain 1, then get any point of connection of the squares, like at this point. We are going to work into this gap. Put your hook right there and slip stitch. So you're going to connect at any point. It doesn't have to be like, you can connect here, here, on all those corners. Then go back into the double crochet into the corner and place 3 more double crochets. Then we're going to go next into the next gap and slip stitch, get into this gap and do 3 double crochets. Into the next gap on the other square, slip stitch, into this gap 3 double crochets, get into this and slip stitch, that gets us to the corner where we do 3 double crochets. Then chain 1 and then go into the next corner right here and slip stitch, then get back into the other corner, into the corner on the other square and do 3 double crochets. And now that square is connected at the bottom, then we continue working all the way around till we get to the end. So from here, chain 1, so the first square in the second row is connected. We're going to get a second square and connect it right here. So we're going to start the connection on this corner, go all the way to this, then attach on this part. So place the 3 double crochets or 2 double crochets after the chain 2 to make 3 double crochets. Chain 1, get your work onto this corner, do a slip stitch there, get back into the corner and do 3 double crochets. Next, get to the next gap right here and slip stitch onto the gap on the square that you're working on. The next gap, do 3 double crochets, slip stitch on the previous gap, on the previous square in the next gap, get onto the new square and do 3 double crochets into this gap, slip stitch next in this gap, then we get to the corner and place 3 double crochets, chain 1, that gets us to the corner. In the corner we're going to slip stitch on this square that is on the opposite side, on the corner of it, so this part right here, insert your hook and do a slip stitch, then we get back into the corner and place 3 double crochets, and that one side of the square is connected. So we're going to get to this edge and connect on this corner too till we get to this next corner, and then we work all the way around back to this point. So the second square in the bottom row is joined. I'm going to get a third square and connect it the same way I've connected the second. I'm joining the last square right here, and I've already joined on one side and on this side. So as we come to the end, we're just going to connect on 3 sides. So this one, and these are the one on the very first square that we attached in the bottom row. So I'm in the corner, and right there I'm going to chain 1, then go onto the middle part and slip stitch. Then get back into the corner and do the 3 more double crochets to make a shell. Connect onto this part, the next gap, with a slip stitch. Move on to the next gap and do 3 double crochets. Into the next one, slip stitch, 3 double crochets onto the other square. Slip stitch onto the next gap of the other square. Get back onto this square at the corner, do 3 double crochets. Chain 1, slip stitch onto the other corner. Then get back right here and do 3 double crochets to complete the shell. Chain 1, onto the next gap, do 3 double crochets. Chain 1, 3 double crochets onto the gap that follows. Chain 1 and complete the square by slip stitching onto the chain 2. Don't cut off the yarn, just leave it like that. Then this is what we're going to have. Now if you want your top longer, you can attach another row of the squares, but at this point I'm done with the main part of my top. I'm going to do an edging at the bottom part and then attach the straps on top. To work the edging, turn your work. So we are working on the row, and what we're going to do is chain 2 at this point, actually chain 3. That will act as our first double crochet. Then as we come back into this gap, we'll place 2 more double crochets in order to get 3. Then we're going to skip onto the gap in the middle, this one right here, and do 3 double crochets. Into this gap that follows, place 3 double crochet. Then 3 double crochets into the next gap. The next one gets 3 double crochets. Then that will get us into the point of connection, and into this point place 3 double crochets. Get onto the next gap, place 3 double crochets. And now repeat this all the way around till you get back to where you've started. I'll meet you at that point. Just make sure that your ends are on the inside part of the top. I'll show you how to work on those ends. I've gotten to the very last gap where I did the chain 3. So right here, I'm going to place 2 double crochets. Then slip stitch on top of the chain 3. Then I'll chain 2. After chaining 2, we're going to work front post and back post double crochets. So you're going to yarn over into this first double crochet right here, go around it from the back, then grab a loop. You're going to do that after yarning on, so you yarn over, go around the double crochet, grab a loop, pull through, get 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the remaining 2. Then the next one will be a back post, so yarn over, go through the back and onto the front part of the double crochet, grab a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. The next double crochet will get a front post, so yarn over, do a front post, double crochet, do a back post double crochet next into the next double crochet, a front post double crochet into the double crochet that follows, a back post next, then a front post, and we repeat this pattern to the end right here. So go all the way around, alternating between a front post and a back post double crochet. Once you get to the end, you're going to slip stitch on top of the chain 2. Then chain 2, work into the first double crochet, front post. So in every front post, you're going to place another front post. In every back post, place another back post. And I'm going to repeat this row and then do one last one, then I'll be back. So once I come to the end of this row, I'll slip stitch on top of the chain 2, then chain 2 again, and work the front post and the back post all the way to the end. So in total, I'll have a total of, this is the first, the second, the third, and then 4. In total, I'll have 4. You can do even 5, whatever works for you. But then I'll do 4 rows, and I'll be done with the edging. So let me do that, then come back. I'm coming to the end of row 4, and this is the last row of the edging. My last stitch is the front post, then slip stitch onto the chain 2 on top of it, chain 1 and cut off the yarn, and we're done with the bottom edging of the top. This is how the top should look like. Now you're just going to get your top and divide it into 2 equal parts. So I'm going to have, this will be my front part. I'll hold it like this. This is where we have one armpit, so I'm going to mark that point. Then the other one is on the other side. I'll get the other stitch marker and mark right there too. Now I have those two sides marked. So this is one of the armpits, this is the other side. What I'll do is do a single crochet edging on top part, beginning from one of the stitch markers. So I'll get my green yarn, my darker shade, and then I'll reconnect it into this gap where we have the stitch marker. Then chain one. Into that gap, I'll place one double crochet. Not one double crochet, but single crochet, sorry. I'll do a single crochet. For a single crochet, you just get into the stitch, grab a loop to get two loops on the hook, then over, pull through the two loops. Now this stitch marker will move to the single crochet now. On top of the single crochet, place the stitch marker there. Then we're going to work in between the double crochet stitches. So right here in between, place a single crochet, and as I work the single crochet row, I'll work over the ends that are on top part of the top, like this one. Then into the next gap in between the two single crochets, two double crochets, I'll place a single crochet into this gap, single crochet into the gap on the other side, single crochet in between the double crochets, then in between the double crochets onto the chain one gap, single crochet in between the double crochets into the gap, in between the double crochets, then right there, then continue, repeat this to the end, to where we've started, into this stitch marker. Once you get to the stitch marker, place a single crochet there, then mark that stitch. So I'll just remove the stitch marker from the gap and place it onto the single crochet that I've worked there. Then continue to the end with single crochets. Once you get to the stitch marker, just slip stitch into it. I'll not pull it out because I want to continue marking that point. Then chain one and cut off the yarn, pull through and fasten, and there we have the top edging. Now we're going to work the straps. For the straps, we're going to work smaller squares like these ones. So what I do to work the small square, it's just simple, just like we started the bigger one. So what you do is start with the slip knot, chain 4, slip stitch onto the first chain to get the magic ring, chain 2, go back into that magic ring with 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 more double crochets, 3 more, sorry, place 3 more double crochets into the same, chain 2, 3 more double crochets. Make sure you get 4 clusters of 3 double crochets each. So this is the third, chain 2, and place the third cluster of double crochets. Chain 2 and slip stitch on top of the double crochet. the first chain 2, then chain 1 and cut off the yarn, pull through and fasten. Now we're going to use these to create the strap, so I'm going to connect the darker shade onto one of the squares, get one of the chain 2 gap and reconnect the yarn, then chain 2, go back into that square, into that gap with 2 double crochets to make 3 double crochets together with the chain 2. Once you have the 3 double crochets, chain 2, go back into that gap with 3 more double crochets, then chain 1, go to the next gap and place 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 more double crochets into that corner, chain 1, skip over to the next gap, do the shell stitch there, the 3 double crochet shell, so 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 more double crochets, chain 1 into the last corner, the shell stitch, the 3 double crochet shell stitch. Then chain 1 and slip stitch on top of the chain 2 from the beginning, chain 1 and cut off the yarn, pull through, fasten. Now get a second square, begin with a slip knot, connect the yarn on one of the corners, do a slip stitch like that, chain 2, go into that gap with 2 double crochets, so that together with the chain 2 we get 3 double crochets, chain 1, grab the first square that you've done into one of the corners, put your hook through and slip stitch, then go back into the gap with 3 double crochets, go into the first square that we did, onto the next gap, put the hook through and slip stitch, into the next corner, place 3 double crochets, chain 1, go into the corner of the first square and slip stitch, then go back into this corner with 3 double crochets to complete the shell. The 2 squares are joined. Now chain 1 and complete this round. So place a shell here and a shell on the other corner. Pull through and fasten. So now we're going to continue attaching the squares until you have a length of 14. My strap length is going to be 14. You can determine the length of the strap that you want and work that length. It's between 14 to 18, I guess. But 14 is the size for small to medium. So when you're measuring this, you just stretch out a little bit. When I do this, I'm at almost 6 inches. So I'll keep joining the squares till I get to 14 inches. So I'll do more of these squares and then join them. I'll do 2 of these and then come back and show you how to attach them to the top. I have the 2 straps ready and I joined 5 squares each. Now for this one, I've already weaved in the ends and I've done an edging all the way around. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So for the light green, these ones, what I did is I tied them together, the 2 ends. I make a knot and another knot. This is on the wrong side of the strap. Another knot, then a third knot. Make sure that your knots are very tight. Then get your pair of scissors and cut the yarn. Don't cut too close to the knot, but also don't leave a very big end. So this is what you're going to have, and you're going to do this for all the light greens. Now this is quite okay leaving the end like that because it's going to be on the inside part of the top or the strap. So I just brought this up to be close to the other one, and then I'll tie a knot. The first knot does not have to be too tight so that you do not pull the strings on the strap. Then after that, make sure that the second knot is tight and the third one is also tight. Then just cut off the ends, not too close to the knot. If you have some fabric glue, then this would be good, just to ensure that you secure the knot in place so that it doesn't unravel. Now do this to the next knot. So I have all those knots, the light green knots in place. Then for the dark green, what I'll do is I'll pull them up so that they are on this line, and then I'll work over them. So like this one, which is not on the line, I'll just put it through a stitch on the top and pull it up. Then I'll pull this other one right here up and do that to all the others. Just put them up. Now once you've done that to all those green straps, we're going to do a single crochet edging, and as we do the edging on top, we're going to work over those ends that I've pulled up. You want to make sure that as you work the edging, you're on the right side. So this is the wrong side where we tied the knots, and this is the right side. Grab the darker shade, then get one of the corners. You can start at this point, this point, this point, or this other point. So I'll begin right here, put my hook through, grab the yarn and pull it through. I'm going to work over this shorter end as I work on the others. Then you're going to chain 1, go back into that gap and place 3 single crochets into that one gap. So 1, 2 and 3. Next we work in between the 2 double crochets right here. So in that gap, place a single crochet, move on to the next gap in between the 2 double crochets, place another single crochet, place a single crochet into the chain 1 gap. Remember to work over your ends. We are weaving them in, and working over them makes it easy. Then we move over to the next 2 double crochets in between the 2 double crochets, single crochet. In between the next 2 double crochets, do a single crochet. That takes you into this gap, do a single crochet into that gap. Then don't work right here, work into this gap, single crochet, work in between the double crochets, the next one, and now keep going to the next corner. I'll meet you once I get to the next corner and show you what to do over there. So as you can see, I'm weaving my ends. I'll just cut whatever will have remained at the end. I'm at the corner, and in that corner I'll place 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. That turn to this side. Work the same way we've been working, in between the double crochets and on the chain 1 gap, in between the double crochets. We get to the next corner and place 3 single crochets there. That's what we have. So the edging right here is done. We are remaining with this part. So I'm going to work this part the same way I work this other part, and I'll meet you at the end and show you how to complete at this end. I'm in the last stitch where I've placed the single crochet. Then I'll slip stitch on top of the first single crochet, this one right here. Do a slip stitch, chain 1. We're going to cut off the yarn, but leave an end that we're going to use to attach the strap to the top. Then pull it through. This is what we have. So we've already weaved in. This is the wrong side of the top, so just cut the ends that have remained. Just trim them off because they're already weaved in. Make sure not to cut the stitches. Then now we get our top. Start from one of the stitch markers. Count 4 gaps from there. So we're counting 1, 2. We count this one, 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th one, this one right here. That's how we're going to connect the strap. So just get it. This is the right side. We want to work on the wrong side, so turn it like this to the wrong side. Grab your yarn needle, put it through, put the yarn through. So that was 1, 2. I'll just go through the first stitch. Make sure that you're working on the wrong side, but then the first stitch right there, inside your darning needle like that, then pull it through. Then after counting the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is where I start reconnecting into this stitch. That's where I connect the strap. So like that, go into the next stitch and the other stitch on the other side, and just sew them together, all the corresponding stitches. till you get to the corner. This is my corner stitch, so I'll go through it and then make a knot to secure that place, then weave in that end that has remained. So I'll do that into the single crochet row that I worked on top of the top. So the reason why I like to do the single crochet edging is so that I make weaving in of the ends easy, because weaving ends on granny squares is not that easy. So with the single crochets, then it becomes very simple. Then I'll just cut off that end, and we've secured the strap on one side. We need to, so this is what we have. Now we need to attach the strap onto the other side. So you just stand like this, and you need to ensure you're working on the wrong side. So let me just turn my work to the wrong side. It will be easier that way. So when I turn it to the wrong side, this is what I have. I'll get the darning needle and some yarn. Not too long. Then from the stitch marker again, we're going to count 4 gaps like we counted on the other side. So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we bring our strap. This is the first stitch of the joining part of the strap. Then we go onto the corner stitch on the strap, and I'm going to secure right there with a knot. Then just attach the corresponding stitches. Then make the knot and weave in the end. Then cut off whatever remains. Then we're going to get this other end and weave it into. So next, we're going to attach the other strap on the other side, same way we've done with this one. So what I do is just turn my top to the other side so that I count from this side. Grab your yarn, whatever you're attaching, the strap that you're attaching, count 4 gaps beginning from this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to connect from the 4th right there. And then do the same thing on the other side. Let me do that and then come back. So right here, I've already attached both straps, but then I noticed that on this side, I'd counted 4 gaps. And after counting 4 gaps on this other side, I realized that the straps were going to be too close to each other. So instead, I counted 3 on this side. And so what I'm going to do is I'll remove this strap and push it backwards to this side. But then after that, I'll be done. So the top is ready now, and you're going to weave in the ends on the inside the same way we've weaved in the ends on the strap. Like, you're going to get any 2 straps that are close together and tie them together like these ones. Make the first knot not too tight, and then the second knot and the third, make them tight. then cut off. Don't cut too close to the knot. The ones that are not too close to each other, you can move one of them closer to the other. So I'll just move this one up. Then tie the knots. Tie a second knot that is tight, and a third one. Then cut off whatever remains. Remember, do not cut close to the knot. These are not going to be visible because they'll be on the inside part of the top. Now do that for all the other straps. So we're going to do that for all the other ends, and then for the ends that are close to the single crochet stitches, just move them up and then sew them inside the single crochet stitches. And when you do that, you'll be done with your top. And here is what I have. So like I've mentioned, I'm going to move my strap to a point, to somewhere right here, so that the straps are not too close to each other. And there we have our top ready. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the tutorial. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, leave a like, a comment, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you get to recreate this, do not forget to tag me on my social media pages, that is on Instagram and on TikTok, and I'll be sure to repost you. If you want to leave a special thanks, as usual, there's a thanks button below the video, so click on it and leave something and I'll appreciate it. All the details about the requirements that you need for this particular top are in the description box, so click on it and check whatever you need there. Thank you, and see you in the next one.